I want you to imagine the sound of metal clicking shut. It's a cold, mechanical sound. Click. Click. Now, imagine that sound coming from the wrists of your 11-year-old son. My name is Emily, and I'm a forensic accountant. I deal with facts. I deal with numbers. I deal with the black and white reality of a balance sheet. But what happened last Saturday night? There was no column in a spreadsheet that could account for the sheer, unadulterated cruelty I witnessed. It was supposed to be a celebration. My parents, Robert and Linda, were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. The venue was the Sapphire Room at the Grand Hotel downtown, a place that smelled of old money, lilies, and floor wax. I had paid for the catering. I had paid for the open bar. I had even paid for the band that was currently playing a soft jazz cover of The Way You Look Tonight. And yet, I was standing near the service entrance, holding a glass of lukewarm water, while my sister, Sarah, held court in the center of the room. Sarah is 4 years older than me. She is the golden child. The sun around which my parents' entire universe orbits. She was wearing a red silk gown that cost more than my first car, and on her wrist, she was flashing a diamond tennis bracelet she claimed was a gift from her admirers at the charity foundation she managed. "It's $20,000, Emily," she had sneered at me earlier, waving her wrist under my nose. "Try not to let your son touch it. I know how grabby kids can be." My son, Liam, was sitting quietly in the corner, playing on his Switch. He's a good kid. A quiet kid. Since his father passed away 3 years ago, he's been my rock, and I've been his. He wasn't bothering anyone. Then came the scream. It cut through the jazz music like a serrated knife. My bracelet. It's gone. Someone stole it. The room froze. Sarah was standing by the dessert table, clutching her wrist, her eyes scanning the room with theatrical panic. My mother, Linda, rushed to her side immediately. "Oh my God, Sarah. Are you sure? Did it fall?" "I took it off for 2 seconds to wash my hands in the powder room," Sarah wailed, pointing a manicured finger directly at the corner of the room. "And he was the only one who went in there after me." She was pointing at Liam. My heart stopped. I dropped my water glass. It shattered, but nobody looked at me. All eyes were on my terrified 11-year-old son. "Liam?" I rushed over, placing myself between him and the accusing stares of 50 guests. "Sarah, don't be ridiculous. Liam hasn't left this corner for an hour." "Liar!" Sarah screeched. She marched over, her face twisted in a mask of ugly triumph. "I saw him. He's always been jealous of what we have. Call the police, Daddy. I want him searched." My father, Robert, didn't even hesitate. He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the chief. This needs to be handled." "Dad, stop." I begged, grabbing his arm. "He's your grandson. He's a child. You can't call the police on a child over a misplaced piece of jewelry." But they did. And because my family has connections, or rather, they pretend to, 2 uniformed officers arrived within 10 minutes. The humiliation was physical. It felt like a weight crushing my chest. The officers, looking uncomfortable, asked to check Liam's backpack. "I didn't take it, Mom," Liam whispered, his lip trembling. "I promise." "I know, baby. I know," I soothed him, glaring at my sister. She was smirking. Actually smirking. The officer unzipped the front pocket of Liam's worn-out Spider-Man backpack. He reached in. And my world tilted on its axis. He pulled out the diamond bracelet. A gasp rippled through the room. "I knew it." Sarah shrieked, clapping her hands. "Arrest him. I want to press charges. That's grand larceny." "Mom!" Liam screamed as the officer turned him around. "I didn't put that there." "Mom!" I lunged forward, but the second officer held me back. Ma'am, step back. He's 11. I screamed, the professional accountant in me vanishing, replaced by a mother bear. He didn't do this. She planted it. Look at her, she's smiling. I looked at my parents. My mother was sipping her champagne, looking at Liam with cold, detached eyes. My father was nodding at the police officer. Mom, Dad, do something. I pleaded. Tell them not to handcuff him. And then, my mother said the words that will ring in my ears until the day I die. She looked at her grandson, tears streaming down his face, his small wrists being forced into cold metal cuffs, and she said, "Don't react, sweetheart. Spoiled kids deserve that. Maybe a night in a cell will teach him some gratitude." My sister laughed. Bye-bye, little thief. As they dragged my sobbing son out of the ballroom, through the crowd of whispering elites, something inside me broke. But it wasn't a break that made me weak. It was a break that let the light in. A cold, hard, blinding light of clarity. I stood there, watching the doors close. I didn't scream anymore. I didn't cry. I looked at my sister, preening over her recovered bracelet. I looked at my parents, clinking glasses as if they hadn't just destroyed a child's innocence. I realized then that these weren't my family. They were my enemies. And they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They thought I was just Emily, the quiet check writer. The doormat. They forgot what I do for a living. I hunt down financial discrepancies. I find buried secrets. And as I walked out of that hotel, shaking with a rage so cold it burned, I knew one thing. I wasn't just going to get my son back. I was going to take everything from them. The waiting room of the police precinct smelled like stale coffee and floor cleaner. It was a stark contrast to the lilies and perfume of the Grand Hotel, but honestly, I preferred it. At least here, the cruelty wasn't masked by a veneer of politeness. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my hands clenched so tightly in my lap that my knuckles were white. The clock on the wall ticked. 11:45 p.m. Liam was in a juvenile holding room. Because of the value of the bracelet, Sarah had insisted it was worth $20,000, the police were treating it as a felony. Grand larceny. They wouldn't release him to me until a social worker arrived to evaluate the home situation. My son was sitting in a cell because my sister wanted attention. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from work. 0 from my family. I dialed my father's number. It rang once. Twice. Then, the voicemail. "You've reached Robert Hart. Leave a message." I hung up and dialed my mother. She picked up on the second ring. I could hear the party in the background, the clinking of silverware, laughter, the band playing something upbeat. They were still celebrating. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "I'm at the station. They won't let me see Liam. You need to tell Sarah to drop the charges. Right now." There was a pause, and I heard her sigh, the sound of ice rattling in a glass. "Emily, don't be dramatic. Sarah is the victim here. You can't expect her to just let this go. It's a $20,000 piece of jewelry. It was in his backpack, Mom. He didn't take it. Sarah put it there." "Stop it," my mother snapped, her voice dropping to that icy tone she used when I was a child and asked for new shoes. "You always blame your sister. You've been jealous of her since you were 5. Face it, Emily, you're a single mother, you're working too much, and the boy is acting out. He needs discipline. This is tough love." "Tough love?" I whispered. "He is 11. He is terrified. He's a thief," she corrected. "And frankly, your father and I agree that maybe you're not fit to handle him on your own. Sarah mentioned petitioning for custody if you can't control him. We're thinking she might be right." I almost dropped the phone. Custody. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Sarah, who couldn't keep a goldfish alive, who was drowning in debt despite her high-paying, charity job, wanted custody of my son. No. This wasn't about Liam. This was about power. This was about hurting me. Don't you dare, I hissed. If you guys don't come down here and fix this. Go home, Emily. We'll discuss your parenting failures in the morning. She hung up. I stared at the phone, the silence of the disconnect buzzing in my ear. I felt a physical wave of nausea. For years, I had played the role of the dutiful daughter. I paid their mortgage when Dad retired early. I covered Sarah's credit card bills when she cried about unexpected expenses. I funded the family vacations I wasn't invited to. I was the provider. The fixer. The ATM. And this was my return on investment. A vibration in my hand startled me. A text from Sarah. Don't bother coming back to the hotel. We told everyone you left because of the shame. If you agree to sign over the deed to Grandma's lake house to me, I might consider dropping the charges. Think about it. Love, S. The lake house. Of course. Grandma had left it to me specifically because she knew Sarah would sell it for parts. It was the only asset I had strictly in my name that Sarah couldn't touch. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the wall. I needed to think. I needed to stop being a victim and start being an accountant. Logic. Evidence. Proof. I replayed the evening in my mind. The arrival. The drinks. The timeline. Sarah said she went to the powder room. Liam followed. But wait. We had arrived at the hotel at 6 p.m. I parked the car. I had helped Liam with his tie in the parking lot. He had left his backpack in the car because I told him not to bring it inside. But he insisted he wanted his switch. So we brought it. But when we walked in, Sarah was outside smoking. She had greeted us. She had hugged Liam, an unusual gesture for her. She had fussed over his backpack straps. Oh, let Andy fix this, it's twisted, she had said. She was standing behind him. For a solid 30 seconds while I was getting the parking ticket from the valet. My car. My Tesla has Sentry mode. It records everything around the vehicle when it's parked. My eyes snapped open. The timeline didn't match Sarah's story about the powder room. If she planted it, she might have done it earlier. Or... Wait. If the bracelet was in the backpack before we entered the ballroom, then her entire story about taking it off in the bathroom was a lie. And if she lied to the police, that's filing a false report. That's a crime. I looked at the clock. 12:15 a.m. The social worker finally walked in. She looked tired. Mrs. Hart. You can take your son home. But we have a court date set for Tuesday. And I'm opening a case file on your household. I nodded, standing up. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was sharpening. Thank you, I said. When Liam walked out, he looked smaller than I had ever seen him. His eyes were puffy, his shoulders slumped. He ran into my arms and buried his face in my coat. He smelled of industrial soap and fear. Let's go home, baby, I whispered into his hair. As we walked out into the cool night air, I didn't drive straight home. I pulled into a quiet side street, turned off the engine, and pulled up the app on my phone connected to the car's cameras. Mom, what are you doing? Liam asked, his voice hoarse. I'm getting receipts, Liam, I said, my finger hovering over the footage from 6:05 p.m. I'm getting receipts. The screen of my phone was small, but the 4K resolution of the car's side camera was unforgiving. I scrubbed the timeline back. There. 6:05 p.m. The video showed my car parked near the entrance. I saw myself walking away toward the valet stand. I saw Liam standing by the rear fender, looking at a bird. And then, I saw her. Sarah walked into the frame. She was wearing her red dress, holding a cigarette in one hand. But it was her other hand that mattered. On the video, clear as day, she reached into her clutch purse. She pulled out something that glittered. The bracelet. She looked around, left, right, but she didn't look at the car. She didn't know the car was watching. She walked up to Liam. She crouched down, pretending to fix his strap. "Oh, let Andy fix this." And in one smooth motion, she slipped the bracelet into the unzipped side pocket of his backpack. My breath hitched in my throat. I watched it 3 times. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a premeditated setup. She had planted the evidence before the party even started. That meant her entire performance inside, the screaming, the loss in the bathroom, was scripted. "Mom?" Liam asked, watching my face. I turned to him. The tears that had been threatening to fall all night suddenly evaporated. A strange calm washed over me. It was the snap. That moment when grief turns into strategy. When the heart hardens to protect what matters. "Liam," I said, my voice steady and low. "You are not going to jail. And Aunt Sarah is going to regret the day she was born." We drove home in silence. I put Liam to bed, gave him some warm milk, and waited until his breathing evened out. Then, I went to my home office. I didn't turn on the overhead lights. Just the glow of my 3 monitors. I am a forensic accountant. Companies hire me when they suspect their CFO is skimming off the top. I find money that people try very hard to hide. I cracked my knuckles and logged into the cloud. Years ago, my father had asked me to set up the accounting software for the family business and Sarah's charity foundation, Hearts for Hope. He said he wanted it professional. I had set it up, given them the passwords, and stepped back. But they never removed my admin access. Why would they? To them, I was just the IT girl. The invisible fixer. I logged in. First, I looked up the insurance policy on the bracelet. Sarah had claimed it was worth $20,000. I found the policy. Insured by Lloyd's. Valued at $22,000. Purchased 6 months ago. Then, I looked for the purchase receipt. Sarah claimed it was a gift from admirers. I went through her credit card statements, which I paid off last year, and still had access to. Nothing. No charge for a bracelet. I dug deeper. I went into her private email. Yes, I know, privacy violation. But she cuffed my son. The rules of war applied. I searched bracelet. And there it was. An email from an online replica store called Luxfo. Order confirmation, 1 high-quality zirconia tennis bracelet. Price, $149.99. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound in the empty room. The bracelet wasn't diamond. It was glass. She had insured a $150 piece of costume jewelry for $22,000. But wait. If she had the fake one, where was the real one? Or was there ever a real one? I searched further back. 2 years ago. An invoice from a jeweler in New York. Vintage diamond tennis bracelet. Purchase price, $18,000. So she did have a real one. I checked her bank records for deposits. 6 months ago, around the same time she bought the insurance policy and the fake bracelet, there was a massive deposit in her personal checking account. $12,000. From a pawn shop in downtown Chicago. The picture was forming. It was ugly, but it was clear. Sarah was broke. She had pawned the real bracelet 6 months ago to pay off what? I checked the outflows. Online gambling sites. Lucky 7 Casino. Thousands of dollars a week. She had sold the real bracelet. Bought a fake one. Insured the fake one as the real one. And tonight was the theft. She needed a scapegoat to claim the insurance money. And she chose my son. Because she hated me. Because she wanted the lake house. Because she's a sociopath. But as I clicked through the files, searching for more, I noticed something else. Something much, much worse than insurance fraud. The Hearts for Hope charity accounts were linked to my parents' personal accounts. I saw transfers. Monthly transfers. $5,000. $10,000. Labeled as consulting fees paid to Robert and Linda Hart. My parents. They weren't just enabling her. They were on the payroll. I sat back in my chair, the blue light of the screens illuminating my face. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was a RICO case waiting to happen. I picked up my phone. I didn't call a lawyer. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to know how deep the rot went. You want to play games? I whispered to the empty room, looking at a picture of Sarah and my parents smiling on a yacht I paid for. Let's play. I didn't sleep. Sleep is for people who don't have a war to win. By 3 a.m., my desk was covered in printed spreadsheets. My eyes burned, but my mind was operating at a level of cold precision I hadn't felt in years. I focused on the family trust. My grandfather, a man of integrity and hard work, had left a substantial trust fund. It was supposed to care for my parents in their old age and provide a nest egg for the grandchildren, Sarah's hypothetical kids and Liam. I hadn't looked at the trust in 5 years. Dad always said, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it, Emily. The lawyers handle it." I navigated to the trust's dashboard. Balance, $432.18. $400. My breath caught. There should have been over $2 million in there. I clicked on Transaction History. It was a bloodbath. Over the last 3 years, the money had been drained. Not stolen by strangers, stolen by family. Withdrawal, $50,000 medical expenses, there were no medical issues. Withdrawal, $120,000 real estate investment, a condo in Miami that was titled to Sarah. Withdrawal, $80,000 vehicle purchase, the Porsche my dad drives. They had drained the inheritance. Every penny. But here was the kicker, the money ran out 6 months ago. And that's when the consulting fees from the charity started ramping up. It was a Ponzi scheme. They had eaten through their own money, so now they were eating through the charity's money. The money meant for orphans, for cancer research. My stomach churned. My parents weren't just bad with money. They were embezzlers. They were stealing from the public to maintain a lifestyle they could no longer afford. And Sarah? Sarah was the ringleader. I looked at a specific transaction from last week. A withdrawal of $15,000 from the charity account. The memo line said, "Venue deposit, gala." But the gala was being held at the community center, which I knew for a fact was donated space. Where did that $15,000 go? I traced the routing number. It went to a private account. I didn't recognize the name at first. R. Green. Who is R. Green? I searched Sarah's social media. Friends lists. Nothing. Then I remembered. Sarah had an assistant. A quiet, mousy girl named Rachel. Rachel Green. Why was Sarah sending 15 grand to her assistant? Was Rachel in on it? Or was Rachel being used just like Liam? I grabbed a sticky note and wrote, "Find Rachel." The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and gray. I heard Liam stirring in his room. I walked into the kitchen to make coffee. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. My phone rang. It was 6:30 a.m. Hello. Emily, my father's voice boomed. He sounded jovial, completely ignoring the fact that his grandson had spent the night in a cell. Listen, your mother and I have been talking. Have you? I asked, pouring boiling water into the French press. Yes. We think we found a solution. Sarah is willing to drop the charges against Liam. Is she? I gripped the counter. How generous. But he continued, she's very traumatized. The loss of the bracelet, the betrayal. We think it's best if you sign over your portion of the lake house to her. As a settlement. To keep this out of the courts. You know how expensive lawyers are, Emily. You can't afford a felony defense for the boy. They were blackmailing me. Using my son's freedom to steal the last asset I had. I see, I said, my voice dangerously calm. And if I sign? Then it all goes away. We're a family, Em. We fix things in-house. I looked at the stack of papers on my desk. The evidence of grand larceny, embezzlement, fraud, and theft. I need a day to get the papers ready, Dad, I lied. Good girl, he said. I knew you'd see reason. Oh, and bring Liam to the gala tomorrow night. Sarah wants a public apology. It'll look good for her image. Show that she's forgiving. A public apology. They wanted to parade my son on stage and make him beg for forgiveness for a crime he didn't commit. We'll be there, I said. I hung up. I wasn't going to bring an apology. I was going to bring a warhead. But first I needed Rachel Green. I found Rachel at a Starbucks near the charity's office at 8 a.m. I knew her routine because Sarah used to complain about it. That idiot girl spends 20 minutes getting coffee every morning while I'm waiting for my latte. Rachel looked exhausted. She was young, maybe 24, with dark circles under her eyes and a nervous twitch in her shoulder. She was scrolling through her phone, looking like she was waiting for a bomb to go off. I walked up to her table. Rachel? She jumped, nearly knocking over her iced coffee. Ms. Hart. I didn't know you were. I'm not here to yell at you, Rachel, I said, sitting down opposite her. I placed my phone on the table, face down. I'm here to ask you about the $15,000 Sarah transferred to your account last week. Rachel's face went white. Whatever color she had drained away instantly. I don't know what you're talking about. I have the bank records, I lied softly. I know she sent it. And I know you transferred it right back to her, but to a different account. An offshore one. It was a guess. A forensic accountant's intuition. That's how money laundering works. You use a mule. Rachel started to cry. Silent, terrified tears. She made me. She said if I didn't do it, she'd fire me. She said she'd tell everyone I stole from the petty cash. I need this job, Ms. Hart. My mom is sick. I reached across the table and covered her trembling hand with mine. Rachel, look at me. Sarah had my 11-year-old son arrested last night. For a crime she committed. Rachel looked up, shock replacing the fear. Liam? But she told me she lost the bracelet at the gym last week. Exactly, I said. She has you moving money. She has you falsifying invoices. Rachel, when the IRS comes, and they will come, Sarah is going to throw you under the bus just like she threw Liam. She will say you were the mastermind. Rachel wiped her eyes. She calls me stupid. Every day. She throws staplers at me. I can protect you, I said firmly. But I need everything. The real schedules. The emails she told you to delete. The recordings. Recordings? Rachel asked. People who are bullied usually keep insurance, I said. Do you have any? Rachel hesitated for a long second. Then, she reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. It was pink, with a Hello Kitty sticker on it. I record the meetings, she whispered. Because she always gaslights me about what she said. I wanted to prove I wasn't crazy. I took the drive. What's on here? Everything, Rachel said. Including the meeting with your parents last month. Where they discussed the audit. My blood ran cold. They discussed the audit. Yes. Your dad told Sarah that they needed to create a distraction, so you wouldn't look at the books this month. He said they needed to break your spirit, so you'd be too busy crying to notice the money was gone. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The arrest wasn't just Sarah being petty. It was a strategic distraction planned by my father. They sacrificed my son to cover their theft. Thank you, Rachel, I said, standing up. Go home. Call in sick tomorrow. Do not go to the gala. What are you going to do? She asked, eyes wide. I'm going to finish the audit, I said. I went back to my car and plugged the USB drive into my laptop. I put on my headphones. I found the file dated 3 weeks ago. Meeting_mom_dad.mp3, I pressed play. Dad's voice, we're bleeding dry, Sarah. If Emily sees the trust balance, we're done. Sarah's voice, she's a boring little nerd, Daddy. She never checks unless we ask her to. Mom's voice, she's getting suspicious though. She asked about the vacation home maintenance fees. We need to keep her occupied. Sarah, I have an idea. The anniversary party. I'll stage something. Something involving the brat. If she's fighting a legal battle for custody, she won't have time to look at our bank statements. Mom, just don't hurt the boy too much. We don't want child services sniffing around. Sarah, oh, relax. He's tough. A little scare will do him good. And it will destroy Emily. She'll be so desperate she'll sign anything we put in front of her. Dad, laughing, that's my girl. Smart. Ruthless. Just like me. I ripped the headphones off. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't breathe. Ruthless, I whispered. You have no idea. I had the audio. I had the video. I had the bank records. It was time to call the police. But not just the beat cops. I needed someone who understood white-collar crime. I needed Detective Miller. Detective Miller was a man who looked like he had seen everything, and was impressed by none of it. He sat behind a desk piled high with paperwork, chewing on a toothpick. So he said, looking at the stack of evidence I had placed before him. Let me get this straight. Your sister frames your kid to cover up an insurance scam, which is part of a larger embezzlement scheme involving your parents, who are robbing a cancer charity. Yes, I said. Here is the timeline. Here are the bank transfers. And here. I slid the flash drive across the desk. Is them planning it? Miller plugged in the drive. He listened to the recording. His expression didn't change, but he stopped chewing the toothpick. When it finished, he looked at me. There was a newfound respect in his eyes. Mrs. Hart, this is thorough. We usually take months to build a case like this. I'm an accountant, I said simply. I follow the money. You know, if we move on this, your family is going down. All of them. Felony fraud. Conspiracy. Child endangerment. This is prison time. Not a slap on the wrist. I know, I said. My voice didn't waver. They handcuffed my son. Miller nodded slowly. Okay. Here's the problem. We need to catch them in the act or getting ready to run. If they catch wind of this investigation, they'll shred documents, hide assets, flee the country. They won't run, I said. They're too arrogant. And they think they've won. Tonight is the charity gala. They expect me to be there to apologize. Miller leaned forward. The gala. All the board members will be there. Yes. And the donors. Okay, Miller said. We can make this work. But you need to play along. You need to walk into that lion's den and make them believe you are defeated. Can you do that? I can do it. And Mrs. Hart. Miller paused. Don't tip your hand. If they sense anything, the deal is off. I left the station and drove to my parents' house. It was a terrifying risk, but I needed them to believe I was broken. I found my mother in the garden, pruning roses. She looked the picture of suburban elegance. It made me sick. Emily, she exclaimed, wiping her hands on her apron. Did you bring the papers? I pulled the deed transfer for the lake house out of my bag. I had printed it off the internet. It was legally garbage. I had misspelled my own middle name, and the notary date was wrong, but she wouldn't notice. Here, I said, handing it to her. I signed it. Sarah gets the house. Just please, make sure the charges are dropped. Mom took the papers, her eyes gleaming with greed. She didn't even read them. She just hugged them to her chest. Oh, Emily. You made the right choice. It's for the best. Family helps family. Yeah, I said, forcing a weak smile. Family. Now about tonight, she said, linking her arm through mine. We need Liam to look presentable. Sarah bought him a suit. It's waiting in the hall. And you wear something drab. We want Sarah to shine tonight. She's the victim, remember? I remember, I said. And the apology, Mom continued. Keep it short. I'm sorry my son stole from you. Thank you for your mercy. Something like that. I'll have it memorized, I promised. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Make sure the brat doesn't cry on stage. It ruins the aesthetic. See you at 7. I gripped the steering wheel. The rage was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Wait until 7, Sarah, I thought. Just wait. I went home and dressed Liam. He looked handsome in the suit, but his eyes were still sad. Mom, do I really have to apologize? He asked, adjusting his tie. I didn't do it. I knelt down and held his shoulders. Listen to me, Liam. You trust me, right? Yes. Tonight, we are going to go there. But you are not going to apologize. You are going to stand next to me. And you are going to watch Mommy take out the trash. Okay. He looked confused, but he nodded. Okay. I put on my dress. I didn't listen to Mom. I didn't wear something drab. I wore a sharp, navy blue dress suit. Power armor. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the scared sister anymore. She was the executioner. The gala was disgusting in its opulence. Champagne towers, ice sculptures, a live string quartet. It was all paid for with stolen money. As Liam and I walked in, the room went quiet. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's the sister. That's the boy who stole the diamonds. Can you believe they showed their faces? I held Liam's hand tight. Head up, I whispered. Walk like you own the place. Sarah was at the front of the room, surrounded by donors. She spotted us and sauntered over, a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked radiant and evil. You made it, she purred. And look at the little convict. Cleaning up nice. Liam shrank back. I stepped in front of him. We're here, Sarah. Just like you asked. Did Mom get the deed? She asked, lowering her voice. She has it. Good. Now you're up in 10 minutes. Mr. Henderson is going to introduce me, I'll give my speech about forgiveness, and then you bring Liam up. Don't embarrass me. She turned on her heel and walked away. I saw my parents near the bar. My dad raised his glass to me in a mock toast. Good girl, his expression said. Obedient girl. I scanned the room. I saw Mr. Henderson, the chairman of the board. He was a decent man, old school. He had no idea he was presiding over a criminal enterprise. And in the back, near the catering staff, I saw a waiter who wasn't serving drinks. He was wearing an earpiece. Detective Miller's man. The trap was set. Suddenly, Sarah grabbed Liam's arm and pulled him toward the backstage area. Come here, I need to check your tie. Hey. I followed them behind the heavy velvet curtains. Sarah spun Liam around roughly. Listen to me, you little brat. When you get out there you cry. You hear me? You squeeze out some tears. People love a repentant child. If you look bored, I will make sure your mom loses her job. Do you understand? Stop touching him, I said, stepping into the small backstage space. Sarah ignored me. She squeezed Liam's face. Smile for me. Let me see how fake you can be. Liam bit his lip, trying not to cry for real. He didn't smile. Slap. The sound was sharp and shocking. Sarah had slapped him across the cheek. I said smile, she hissed. Liam gasped, clutching his face. That was it. That was the final straw. I didn't lunge at her. I didn't scream. I went deadly still. You shouldn't have done that, Sarah, I said. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from a grave. She laughed, checking her nails. He needed a reset. Fix his face, Emily. You're on in 2 minutes. She swept past me and walked out onto the stage as the applause started. I knelt down to Liam. His cheek was red. Mom. He sobbed. It's okay, I said. Stay here. Stay right here behind the curtain. Do not come out until I say so. I stood up. I walked over to the AV tech booth, which was just to the side of the stage. The tech guy, a young kid named Dave, looked at me. Mrs. Hart. Sarah said no interruptions during the video montage. Change of plans, Dave, I said, handing him my laptop. We updated the montage. Play this file instead. It's labeled The Truth. Sarah didn't mention. Sarah is busy accepting an award, I said, slipping a $100 bill into his shirt pocket. Just hit play when I give the signal. I walked out from the wings. Sarah was at the podium, basking in the spotlight. And that is why forgiveness is so important, she was saying into the microphone, her voice trembling with fake emotion. My family has been tested. But we choose love. I would like to invite my sister and my nephew to the stage now. The crowd applauded politely. My parents were beaming in the front row. I walked up the stairs. I stood next to Sarah. I took the microphone from the stand. Thank you, Sarah, I said. My voice echoed through the hall. We are here to talk about the truth. Sarah smiled nervously. Just the apology, Em. I looked at the crowd. I saw the faces of the people my family had scammed. I saw my parents. I saw the police officers in disguise in the back. My sister wants an apology, I said clearly. But I think the receipts speak louder than words. I pointed to the projection screen behind us. Dave hit it. The massive screen behind us flickered to life. Usually, these galas feature slideshows of smiling orphans or sad puppies. Instead, the 4K footage of my Tesla's side camera appeared. It was massive. 10 feet high. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. On the screen, Giant Sarah walked up to Giant Liam. She looked around furtively. She pulled the glittering bracelet from her purse. She slid it into the backpack. The crowd gasped. It was a collective sound, like the air being sucked out of the room. Sarah froze. She stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. What is this? That's you, Sarah, I said into the microphone. Planting the evidence. Turn it off. Sarah screamed, lunging for me. Turn it off. I stepped back. I'm not done. The video cut. Now it was audio. The waveform danced on the screen. Dad's voice, we're bleeding dry. If Emily sees the trust balance, we're done. Sarah's voice, stage something. Something involving the brat. It will destroy Emily. Mom's voice, just don't hurt the boy too much. Dad's voice, that's my girl. Ruthless. Just like me. My parents stood up in the front row. My father's face was purple. My mother looked like she was going to faint. Lies. Sarah shrieked, grabbing the podium. She faked it. It's AI. It's a deep fake. And finally, I said, ignoring her, here are the bank records. The screen changed again. Spreadsheets. Highlighted in red. The transfers from the Hearts for Hope charity directly into Robert and Linda Hart's personal accounts. The payments to the offshore accounts. The purchase of the fake bracelet from Luxfo for $149.99. You stole for $0.3 million, I said, my voice booming. You stole from orphans. You stole from me. And you framed an 11-year-old boy to cover it up. Mr. Henderson, the chairman, stood up slowly. His face was ashen. Robert? Sarah? Is this true? She's crazy. Sarah screamed, running toward me. She raised her hand to hit me, just like she hit Liam. But she never made contact. From the shadows of the wings, Detective Miller stepped out. He wasn't alone. 4 uniformed officers marched onto the stage. Sarah Hart, Miller said, his voice cutting through the chaos. You are under arrest for grand larceny, insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. Sarah stopped. She looked at the handcuffs on Miller's belt. The same kind of handcuffs she had put on Liam. No, she whispered. Daddy. Do something. I looked down at the front row. 2 more officers were standing behind my parents. Robert and Linda Hart, another officer said. Please stand up. You are under arrest for embezzlement and conspiracy. The room erupted. Flashes from cameras went off. People were shouting. I watched as Sarah was cuffed. She was crying now, real, ugly tears. She looked at me pleading. Emily, please. Tell them. We're sisters. I leaned into the microphone one last time. I don't have a sister, I said. I have a son. I walked off the stage as they dragged her away. I went behind the curtain where Liam was waiting. He had seen everything from the side. He looked at me with wide eyes. Mom, you got them. Yeah, baby, I said, hugging him tight. I got them. We are not done yet. The fallout from this night was massive. The trial, the prison sentences, and the secret I found in my father's safe that changed everything that is coming up next. If you enjoyed watching Justice Be Served, please hit that like button and comment the number 1 below. Let me know you're with me. Comment 1 and let's finish this. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut is different when you know it is justice rather than tragedy. When they put them on Liam, the sound was a crack in my heart. When they put them on Sarah, it sounded like a lock snapping open on a heavy door I had been trapped behind for 30 years. The chaos in the ballroom was absolute. The string quartet had stopped playing, the cellist staring with her bow hovering in midair. The donors, people who had signed checks for thousands of dollars believing they were helping sick children, were standing on their chairs to get a better view. I stood at the edge of the stage, my hand resting on Liam's shoulder. He was trembling, but he wasn't crying anymore. He was watching the giants fall. Sarah was not going quietly. As the officers marched her down the stairs, her heels dragging on the carpet, she was screaming profanities that would make a sailor blush. She wasn't the poised charity director anymore. She was a cornered animal. "You can't do this," she shrieked, thrashing against the officer's grip. "Do you know who I am? My father knows the mayor. Daddy. Tell them." But Daddy couldn't tell them anything. Robert Hart, the man who had walked through life with the arrogance of a king, was currently being pressed against the wall by two officers. His face was a mask of purple rage and confusion. "This is a misunderstanding," he bellowed, his voice cracking. "My daughter is unwell. She makes things up. I had nothing to do with this. I watched my mother. Linda. The woman who had told me to spoil my own child with tough love. She wasn't screaming. She was weeping. Not for her crimes, but for her reputation. She was looking around the room, making eye contact with her friends, her bridge partners, her rivals, mouthing 'I didn't know' over and over again." Detective Miller walked over to me. He looked tired but satisfied. He adjusted his tie and nodded toward the exit. "We need you at the station to formalize the statement, Mrs. Hart," he said. "And to hand over the original drive." "I'll be there," I said. As they hauled my family out the double doors, Sarah twisted her head back to look at me one last time. Her mascara was running down her face in black streaks. "You're dead to us, Emily. You hear me? You're nothing." I looked her dead in the eye. "I know. And I've never felt better." The drive to the precinct was quiet. Liam fell asleep in the passenger seat, the adrenaline finally crashing out of his little system. I reached over and smoothed his hair. He looked so young. They had tried to destroy him to save themselves. The thought made my grip on the steering wheel tighten until my knuckles turned white. When we arrived, the station was buzzing. This wasn't just a petty theft anymore. This was a high-profile fraud case involving prominent local figures. Reporters were already gathering outside. I walked past them, my head high. I didn't answer their questions. The story wasn't for them yet. The story was for the evidence locker. Inside, I sat in an interrogation observation room. Detective Miller told me I didn't have to watch, but I told him he was wrong. I needed to watch. I needed to see the end of the movie. They put Sarah in box 1. My parents in box 2. Sarah broke first. It didn't take hours. It took about 15 minutes of Miller laying out the bank records. "I did what I was told," she sobbed, her face buried in her hands. "It was Dad's idea. He said the trust was empty. He said we needed bridge money until the real estate market turned around. I just signed the checks." "You signed the checks and you bought a fake bracelet, and you planted it on a child," Miller said, his voice flat. "I had to," Sarah yelled, looking up. Emily was getting suspicious. "Dad said we needed a distraction. He said if we threatened to take Liam away, she'd be too busy fighting for custody to look at the books. It was a strategy." I closed my eyes. Hearing it confirmed, out loud, was a different kind of pain. My father had weaponized my love for my son against me. He knew the only thing that would blind me was a threat to Liam. He knew me better than I thought, and he used that intimacy to try to kill me. In box 2, the scene was different. My father was trying to charm the female officer. "Now listen, sweetheart," he was saying, using that condescending tone I knew so well. "My daughter Sarah, she's always been a bit unstable. A bit of a kleptomaniac. We've tried to get her help. If she took some money, we certainly didn't know about it. We are victims here. Victims? The officer slammed a file on the table. Mr. Hart, we have audio of you laughing about bleeding the charity dry. We have transfers to your personal offshore account in the Caymans. We have your signature on the withdrawal slips from your granddaughter's trust fund. My father went silent. He slumped in his chair. He looked old suddenly. The veneer of the wealthy patriarch dissolved, leaving behind a scared, greedy old man. Then, the door to the observation room opened. It was Mr. Vance, the family lawyer. He looked disheveled, like he had run all the way here. Emily, he said, breathless. You have to stop this. You have to drop the charges. This will ruin the family name. I turned the swivel chair to face him. The family name is already ruined, Arthur. They ruined it when they became thieves. Think about your inheritance, Vance pleaded, lowering his voice. If they go to prison, the assets will be frozen. The government will take everything. The house, the cars, the investments. You'll get nothing. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. You think I care about the money? I make my own money, Arthur. And besides, I know about the will. Vance froze. His face went pale. I saw the email correspondence in my father's sent folder, I said softly. They cut me out 5 years ago. Everything was going to Sarah. I was never getting a dime anyway. So don't threaten me with poverty. I've been supporting this family for a decade while they plotted to leave me with nothing. Vance slumped against the doorframe. He knew he had no cards left to play. Get out, I said. And you better get a good criminal defense attorney. Because I'm auditing the firm's involvement in the money laundering next. He fled. I turned back to the glass. Sarah was rocking back and forth. My mother was staring at the wall. My father had his head on the table. It was over. The empire of lies had crumbled. And all it took was one mother deciding she was done being a victim. The days following the arrest were a blur of legal proceedings, forensic audits, and media storms. I didn't hide. I didn't retreat. I stood in the center of the hurricane, calm and anchored. The investigation revealed that the rot went deeper than even I had imagined. It wasn't just the $4.3 million. It was the cruelty of the details. They had taken out life insurance policies on me. Yes. Me. I found the paperwork in my father's safe when the police raided the house. A policy worth $2 million. Beneficiary, Robert Hart. I sat on the floor of my childhood home, surrounded by police officers boxing up evidence, holding that policy in my hands. The date on the policy was 3 years ago. Right after my husband died. They had looked at a grieving widow, a single mother struggling to keep her head above water, and they had bet on her death. Mrs. Hart. Detective Miller crouched down next to me. You okay? I handed him the policy. Add it to the file. Jesus, Miller muttered, reading it. These people aren't people, I finished. They're parasites. The news cycle was relentless. Charity scandal, Golden family's dark secret. My face was plastered on the nightly news, but for the first time, I wasn't the sister of the director. I was the whistleblower. I was the hero. But the real reckoning happened during the pretrial depositions. Because my family had turned on each other, the district attorney didn't even need to offer plea deals. They were singing like birds, each trying to pin the mastermind label on the other to reduce their own sentence. I sat in the deposition room as my mother answered questions under oath. She looked 10 years older. Her hair was gray, she hadn't been able to visit her salon in weeks. She wore a prison-issue orange jumpsuit. Mrs. Hart, the DA asked. Did you know that the bracelet placed in Liam's backpack was a fake? My mother looked at me. Her eyes were empty. Yes. And did you agree with your husband's plan to threaten Emily with a custody battle? Yes. Why? My mother sighed, a rattle in her chest. Because Emily is strong. She's annoying. She always does the right thing. It's exhausting. Sarah needed help. Sarah is fragile. We had to protect Sarah. You had to protect your 40-year-old daughter by destroying your 11-year-old grandson. Sarah is special, my mother whispered. Emily was just there. She was the worker. She was supposed to take care of us. That was her job. I stood up. I couldn't listen to it anymore. I walked out of the room, into the hallway where the vending machines buzzed. She was the worker. That was my epitaph in their eyes. I wasn't a daughter. I was a utility. A beast of burden. I bought a bottle of water. My hands were steady. You okay, Mom? I turned. Liam was sitting on a bench, playing his Switch. I had brought him with me because I didn't want him out of my sight. I'm fine, buddy, I said. Just heard something that actually made things easier. What? I found out that none of it was my fault. Not even a little bit. That afternoon, the forensic team finalized the asset seizure list. The house was gone. The cars. The boat. The jewelry. Even Sarah's closet of designer clothes was being auctioned off to pay back the charity. I requested one item from the seizure list. A small, wooden music box that had belonged to my grandmother. It had no monetary value, Southwest the court allowed it. I went to the house one last time before the bank took possession. It was empty. The echoes of my childhood, the parties, the arguments, the fake laughter, were gone. I walked into Sarah's room. It was stripped bare. On the floor in the corner was a picture frame, face down. I picked it up. It was a photo of the two of us when we were kids. I was 5, she was 9. I was looking at her with total adoration. She was looking at the camera, pushing me slightly out of the frame. I took the photo out of the frame. I ripped it in half. I dropped the pieces on the floor. Goodbye, Sarah, I said to the empty room. I walked out of that house, and I didn't look back. Not once. The truth was naked now. Ugly, scarred, and undeniable. But it was the truth. And for the first time in my life, I was free. The trial took place 6 months later. It was a crisp autumn day, the kind where the sky is a piercing blue that hurts your eyes. I wore white. A cream-colored suit, perfectly tailored. I wanted to look like the light in the courtroom. My family sat at the defense table. They looked small. Without their money, without their designer clothes, without their arrogance, they were just 3 pathetic people who had made a series of terrible choices. The judge was a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose. She had read every page of the evidence. She had watched the video of the gala. She had no patience for them. Sarah Hart, the judge said. You have pleaded guilty to grand larceny, insurance fraud, and child endangerment. Your actions were calculated, malicious, and cruel. You showed zero regard for the welfare of your nephew. Sarah stood up. She was trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry. You are sorry you were caught, the judge corrected. I sentence you to 8 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for 5 years. Sarah wailed. It was a guttural sound. The bailiffs had to hold her up. Robert and Linda Hart, the judge continued. You betrayed the public trust. You stole from the vulnerable. And you conspired to destroy your own daughter and grandson. You are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement and conspiracy. Furthermore, all your remaining assets are hereby forfeited to the restitution fund. The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. I watched them being led away. My father looked at me as he passed the aisle. "Emily," he rasped. "We're your parents." I looked at him calmly. "I know. And I hope you find redemption. But you won't find it from me." They were gone. The heavy doors swung shut. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled like fallen leaves and wood smoke. The reporters were there, microphones thrust in my face. "Mrs. Hart. How do you feel? Do you have a statement?" I stopped. I looked into the cameras. "Justice was served today," I said. "But the real victory isn't their punishment. It's the fact that survivors of financial and emotional abuse can stand up. You don't have to be the victim. You can be the evidence." I walked away. The next week, the board of directors of the Hearts for Hope Foundation asked for a meeting. They were terrified. The scandal had nearly destroyed the organization. Donors were fleeing. They were facing dissolution. I walked into the boardroom. The same room where my father used to sit at the head of the table. "Mrs. Hart," Mr. Henderson said. "We don't know what to do. The books are a disaster. The public hates us." "I know," I said. "That's why I have a proposal." I slid a binder across the table. "I have spent the last month restructuring the entire financial model of the foundation. I've cut the administrative bloat, specifically the consulting fees. I've set up a transparent, real-time audit system that donors can view online. I have a plan to pay back every cent my family stole within 3 years." Mr. Henderson looked at the binder, then at me. You want to save it? After what we did to you?" "The charity didn't hurt me," I said. "My family did. The kids with cancer didn't do anything wrong. They need this money. I'm not going to let my parents' greed destroy their hope." "What do you want?" Henderson asked. "I want to be the CFO," I said. "And I want full autonomy. No more family members on the board. Total transparency." They voted unanimously. I didn't take the job for the title. I took it because it was the ultimate revenge. They tried to use the charity to destroy me. Now, I would use the charity to heal the world, and in doing so, erase their stain from it. I worked hard. I worked late. But it was good work. Honest work. And slowly, the reputation of the foundation began to turn. Donors came back, not because of the Hart name, but because of mine. They trusted me. Because I was the woman who put her own family in jail to do what was right. 1 year later, I was sitting on the dock of the lake house. Yes, I kept it. It was the one thing they hadn't been able to touch, thanks to Grandma's ironclad original deed, and my refusal to sign it over. The sun was setting, casting a golden path across the rippling water. The air was filled with the sound of crickets and the distant laughter of a child. Liam was running down the grassy slope, chasing our new golden retriever, Buster. Liam was 12 now. He had grown 3 inches. The shadows under his eyes were gone. He didn't have nightmares about handcuffs anymore. He was just a boy. A happy, loud, messy boy. He ran onto the dock, breathless. "Mom." Buster caught a frog. "Did he?" I laughed, putting down my book. "Well, tell him to let it go. We don't keep prisoners in this house." Liam grinned. "Okay." He ran back off. I took a sip of my iced tea. It was quiet. Peaceful. For a long time, I thought peace was something you had to beg for. I thought if I was just quiet enough, compliant enough, helpful enough, I would be granted peace. I was wrong. Peace isn't given. It is made. It is carved out of the chaos with a sharp knife. I had to cut the cancer out of my life to survive. It left a scar, sure. I still have days where I wonder why they couldn't just love me. I still have moments where I reach for the phone to tell my mom something, and then remember she is in a cell in federal prison. But then I look at my bank account, and the numbers are real. I look at my son, and he is safe. I look at myself in the mirror, and I don't see a victim. I see a warrior. My phone buzzed. It was Rachel. She was my deputy CFO now. We made a hell of a team. Draft of the annual report is ready. We're up 200% in donations. You're a wizard, Emily. I smiled and typed back, not a wizard. Just an accountant who keeps receipts. I stood up and walked to the edge of the dock. I breathed in the cool air. Some battles destroy you. Others define you. And some set you free. I watched the sun dip below the horizon. The darkness came, but I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I had walked through the darkest night of my life, and I had lit a fire that burned it all down. Now, I was standing in the warmth of my own light. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was heavy, but I hope it showed you that you are stronger than the people who try to bring you down. And if you want to hear more stories about karma coming for those who deserve it, click the video on your screen right now. It's another wild ride. I'll see you there.